Good evening, brothers and sisters. Let me share to you my screen. My topic for this evening on social teachings of the church, talk 2, is the kinds of justice. First, about justice. What does it mean? Justice is a concept on ethics and law that means that people behave in a way that is fair, equal, and balanced for everyone. More about justice. God is described as a God of justice who loves justice and delights in it. This we can find in Isaiah, in Psalms, and in Jeremiah. Another one is that justice is now being proposed as the first requirement of love. Christian love radicalizes the doing of justice. Justice in the world begins with the proclamation of the call. Action on behalf of justice fully appears to us as a constitutive dimension of preaching the gospel. In the Old Testament, God reveals himself as the liberator of the oppressed and defender of the poor, demanding from man faith in him and justice towards man's neighbor. The covenant of God is a God of justice. In human society, there are 3 basic relationships. Number 1 of the relationship is the relationship of the members to the community, between the members and the community. When we talk about community here, the context is, take for example, the family. This is a small community. The neighborhood where you live is a community. The business milieu, the business environment is a community. The country is a community. So the second relationship, basic type of relationship, is the relationship between the community to members. Pabaliktad naman. Member to community, then community to members. There's a relationship there. On the third is relationship between members to each other. Okay? And there are 3 species of justice. First, social justice, or the debt of the individual to the community paid by observing its laws. Second, distributive justice, or the debt of the community to share the common good among its individual members. Third is commutative justice, or debts of the individual members to each other. So again, when you talk about social justice, it's between the member and the community. When you talk about distributive justice, that's the justice between the community to members. Okay? And commutative justice is between members. Okay? First, let's talk about commutative justice. This is between members. Commutative justice calls for the fundamental fairness in all the agreements and exchanges between individuals or private social groups. It demands respect for equal human dignity of all persons in economic transactions, contract, or promises. The most common of this is the contract of buying and selling. Business dealing sa atin to. So commutative justice is between members, business dealing. The just price is not determined simply by the intrinsic value of a thing, but also by the common estimation of a thing's market value. In modern so-called free market economies, this common estimation in the market is itself determined by the balance of supply and demand. The state, however, can, when necessary, justly regulate the prices so as to keep the prices of scarce necessities sufficiently low to meet the needs of all, raise the prices to stimulate production, or assist the producers. It can also tax products that are harmful and merely luxurious to decrease the demand for them. So justified ito. Justice ito. Sellers can justify the prices of somewhat above the cost of production, plus a reasonable profit in payment for their own work in producing and marketing them. Entrepreneurship ito. When they can show that this markup is necessary to offset the risks or losses that will arise from the actual condition in the market. Sellers must manifest substantial defects in what they sell, must supply what was purchased, and must protect it until delivered. Buyers must pay the price agreed on, take the purchase object away unless delivery was promised, and make sure the payment reaches the seller. So punta naman tayo, so yun yung commutative justice. No? So between each one, meron tayo niyang business dealing stock. Distributive justice naman is between community to members. Okay? Those who hold authority have a prominent role in achieving the common good, including peace and a productive economy, and distributing burdens involved in producing that good and then distributing benefits therefrom. Possible valid material principles of material justice is to each person, equal share. To each person, according to need. To each person, according to effort. To each person, according to contribution. To each person, according to free market exchanges. Distributive justice in this area consists principally in seeking to defend the primary rights and in opening greater opportunities for individuals to exercise their talents to the full. It does not consist in attempting to level all members of society to equality in all things, since this can only eliminate from society the specialization of functions required to operate the social system for the good of all. A basic problem in distributive justice here in the Philippines is number one, taxation. A tool for distributive justice is not working. It does not distribute wealth. Number two, corruption. It's a waste of money. It also prevents others from helping. Then we go to the third one. Number one, social justice. This is members to the community. Social justice implies that persons, like members of the BCBP, have an obligation to be active and productive participants in the life of society. That society has a duty to enable them to participate in this way. This form of justice can also be called contributive, for it stresses the duty of all who are able to help create the goods, services, and other non-material or spiritual values necessary for the welfare of the whole community. Lagyan kong star ito kasi parang itong second paragraph, parang nakita na natin dati ito eh. Do you think so? Here it is. It's in our BCBP mission. Look at the yellow fonts. A commitment to professional excellence. So dapat pala ako ay may commitment na maging parating employee of the month. I should be excellent in my line of work, in my position in the company. And I should have a commitment towards community and nation building in my schedules, in my activities. Community and nation building should be in my list of activities. Practice of justice and integrity should be with me every day. And the responsible care of all entrusted to us, entrusted to me. Whether I'm an AGL, I'm a chapter head, RCD, or AND. So, social justice, ito pala siya. It is called contributive, for it stresses the duty of all who are able to help create the goods, services, and other non-material spiritual values necessary for the welfare of the whole community. Sabi ni Saint Pius, Pope Pius XI, It is the very essence of social justice to demand from each individual, us, all that is necessary for the common good. All hands on deck. Now, social justice, there are checkpoints to see that people can contribute to society in ways that respect their freedom and dignity of their labor. There are some checkpoints to see if there is social justice in existence. One, work should enable the working person to become more of a human being, more capable of acting intelligently, freely, and in ways that lead to self-realization. Another checkpoint is that economic conditions that leave large numbers of people unemployed, underemployed, or employed in dehumanizing conditions fail to meet the converging demands of these forms of basic justice. Another checkpoint is adequate pay in work for all who seek. It is the primary means for achieving basic justice in our society. Minimum wage. Discrimination in job opportunity or income level on the basis of face, sex, or other arbitrary standards can never be justified under social justice. And last one we have is basic justice also calls for establishment of a floor of material well-being which all can stand. A floor, provision of a floor of material well-being which all can stand. Here we can say is where our Be Honest campaign comes in. Now, you will say, what will I do, Brother Angel? What will I do? Let's talk about overwhelming marginalization and powerlessness. Basic justice demands that the establishment of minimum levels of participation in the life of human community of persons. Basic justice demands the establishment of minimum levels of participation in the life of the human community. The ultimate injustice is for a person or a group to be treated actively or abandoned passively as if they were non-members of the human race. Yung naichipuera. Tawag dito marginalization and exclusion from social life. This exclusion can occur in the political sphere, restriction of free speech, concentration of power in the hands of a few, or outright repression by the state. It can also take economic forms that are equally harmful. Individuals, families, and local communities fall victim to a downward cycle of poverty generated by the economic forces they are powerless to influence. Kawawa naman. The poor, the disabled, the unemployed are too often simply left behind. Nasa tabi. Many people within these less developed countries are excluded from sharing the meager resources available in their homelands by unjust elites and unjust governments. The task of overwhelming these patterns of exclusion and powerlessness are a basic demand of justice. Justice demands that social institutions be ordered in a way that guarantees all persons the ability to participate actively in the economic, political, and cultural life of the society. Okay? Human rights. Let's talk about human rights. Catholic social teaching spells out the basic demand for justice in the human rights of every person. These rights are bestowed on the human beings by God and grounded in the nature and dignity of human persons. They are not created by society. Indeed, society has a duty to secure and protect them. The full range of human rights has been systematically outlined by Pope John the 23rd in Pacem in Terris. These rights include civil and political rights to freedom of speech, worship, and assembly. A number of human rights also concern human welfare and are specifically social and economic in nature. Ano itong mga social and economic nature? Number one, First among these are rights to life, food, clothing, shelter, rest, Medicare, and basic education. These are indispensable to the protection of human dignity. In order to ensure these necessities, all persons have a right to earn a living, which for most people in our economy is through remunerative employment. May sweldo. Number two, all persons have the right to security in the event of sickness, unemployment, and old age. Social and economic rights call for a mode of implementation different from that required to secure civil and political rights. Dapat ang mode of implementation very different. Magkakaiba, hindi pwedeng one size fits all na implementation. Number four, freedom of worship and speech imply immunity from interference on the part of both other persons and the government. The rights to education, employment, and social security are empowerment that calls for positive action by individuals and society at large. First among, the Philippines is above average in civil political rights, but poor in economic and social rights. Government is not doing its role, and it has limited resources. Private organizations like the BCBP should come in to help. It is BCBP's fulfillment of its social justice role. Dapat gawin natin ang social justice role being a community. A few pages back, we said it is important to provide for established floor of well-being on which all can stand. The Be Honest that we have fits this call. Be honest even if others are not. Be honest even if others will not. Be honest if others cannot. If everybody could implement this, put this in their hearts, then there will be a level floor which all can stand. He who walks honestly walks securely. Now, when did we start? Give you a background of the Be Honest. Kailan ba nag-umpisa yan? Nung January lang ba nag-umpisa yan? The inspirational quote and the concept was formed in 2003. In 2004, we officially launched the Be Honest advocacy. May mga motorcades, walkathons, nationwide oratorical contest. In 2010 elections and the midterm elections of 2013, we were there. The Be Honest was there. It reminded the voting public to help ensure peaceful and safe and honest elections. Ano ang theme natin noon? Bumoto ng tapat, bumoto ng nararapat. 2013 yan. Noong 2014, in partnership with AIM, we went to 5 cities, Makati, Laguna, Cebu, Cagayan de Oro, Davao, and put up a forum on confronting corruption. So inikot natin ito. The BCBP also joined Integrity Initiative upon the invitation of Makati Business Club to encourage members to adhere to the Code of Conduct promoting honesty, exclusivity, and fair work standard in their respective work offices. In 2015, the BCBP was convener of the Filipino Movement for Transformational Leadership. If you remember, PMTL. The PMTL also exhorted the voting electorate to discern the best qualified choices using a 20-point discernment. If you remember, the Gabay Cristo. Yung kandidato ko ba, fit ba rito sa Gabay Cristo? In order to elect the next crop of the country's leaders. We did that in the 2016 elections. In 2021, last year, we partnered with 20 faith-based organizations under the CBCP. And just this year, we have our honesty pledge, a call for honesty and transparency in public service, with the written commitment from all those running for office to voluntarily provide the SAL-ends of winning candidates. We partnered with Halalang Marangal on this. So what's my parting words? First, the commutative membership, meron tayo niyan, commutative justice, meron tayo niyan because like for example, the BCBR, Brotherhood, Christians in Business retreat, we provided for that member-to-member relationships. And we have a whole manual on how to deal with this. For distributive, which is community to members, we have our white cards, we have our manuals, we have our one-on-ones. But for social justice, this is for everyone, for each and every individual. And I'd like to repeat, social justice implies that persons, like members of the BCBP, me and you, have an obligation to be active and productive participants in the life of society, and that society has a duty to enable them to participate in this way. This form of justice can also be called contributive, for it stresses the duty of all who are able to help create the goods and services and other non-material and spiritual values necessary for the welfare of the whole community. We have discussion starters, brothers and sisters. These questions you can take and discuss in your circles of discernment, in your action groups, to you to ponder and reflect on. Number one question, discussion starter. In what areas of the topic, the kind of justice, are you having a struggle on or find hard to implement in your life? How do you intend to respond to the challenge? Number two, based on what you have learned here about social justice, what is specific and practical action can you take to promote social justice in your own sphere of influence and in the outer business environment in our country? And number three, discussion starter, is you hear someone complain that the government is not doing enough to alleviate poverty, is too corrupt, or is tolerating graft and corruption among government officials. What is your reaction? How do you respond? So I hope you will have a very productive discussion in your own action groups. I've included here, brothers and sisters, a picture of the book where all these things that I presented to you came from. It's from the Evangelizing Presence. Evangelizing Presence, the challenge of the social transformation, This was written by Father Giordano, Jesuit, and Nancy Catan, very own Nancy Catan. So sa kanya galing itong, sa kanila galing ito. And some of those I place here verbatim. For example, the discussion starters. You might say si Angel nilagay yung number 3, nagko-complain yata ito, no? But I've written this verbatim coming from this book, which was published in 2004. Thank you very much, brothers and sisters, and good evening.